So it's been a while since I posted my last video. The last video we did was a live one. We talked a lot about landlord-tenant law and what was going to come up with the eviction moratorium.
That's a funny word.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about that and a couple other things today that have been on my mind recently. And so let's get started on that. First thing I want to talk about is it looks like the eviction moratorium is going to be expiring here on July 31st. So any landlords that have been prohibited from filing their claims, it appears that you can start filing your claims starting August 1st.
Looks like the only other day he has open is March 17th.
And so I wanted to discuss a little bit about what that moratorium means and what I've been thinking about it. First of all,
tell us what you know! Tell us what you know now!
So there's been a lot of people that have been asking me, is it okay to give the 5-day pay or quits or the 45-day notices for holdover tenants? And the answer to that is yes and no. First of all, you got to look at the proclamation. The proclamation said that the governor was suspending the laws 521.68 and 521.71.
What is he talking about?
Those are the two laws under the Landlord-Tenant Code that talk about non-payment of rent and holdover tenants. Well, we know what non-paying rent is, non-payment of rent, but what's a holdover tenant? Well, a holdover tenant is simply someone who lease has been expired and they didn't move out, or it's someone that was on a month-to-month agreement and they were told that their lease was expiring and they didn't move out at the end of the 45 days notice that the landlord gave them. Those are holdover tenants. And so the governor basically said if they're not paying rent or they're staying past the end of their lease, then you can't kick them out.
If he can do that, what else can he do that we don't know about?
So that looks like it's expiring. But in both of those cases, you have to give them notice, right? You've got to give them either 5 business days to pay the rent or get out, or in the case of a 45, or in the case of a month-to-month agreement, you got to give them 45 days notice that you will be terminating the lease. And if you're a tenant, the landlord has to give you that notice, right? Or they can't legally kick you out. Okay? So the question now is, well, because there's a moratorium on those two laws, can we give you those notices during the moratorium? And I've been advising clients no. And let me preface this video once again, like I always do, that this is just general legal information. I'm not giving anybody specific legal advice as to their case. I will explain a little bit of what the laws mean, and you can apply that to yourself or not, but I'm not giving anybody legal advice.
Lesson number 1, read the fine print.
And the reason I'm saying that, you can give the notice is, of course, you can always give notice. The question is giving notice proper? And so that's where the no comes in my opinion. If a landlord gives you a 5-day pay or quit during the moratorium, the argument against that being legal is the governor has suspended the law which allows the landlord to give you that 5-day pay or quit. If you read 521.68, it talks about how the landlord can remove a tenant for non-payment of rent or related non-payments only after they give the tenant 5 days to pay that bill. And that's 5 business days. And if the governor has suspended that law which gives the landlord the right to post that notice, then it sounds like, in my opinion, that the right to post the notice has also been suspended. And so what I'm saying is if your landlord gives you 5 days to pay July's rent, 5 days before the ending of the moratorium, they've given it to you too early.
It started too early!
And so if you're a landlord and you're talking about or wondering about when should I post this, you need to pay me rent type thing, well, if you were to call me and ask me and do a consultation with me, I'd probably say you should do it on August 1st when the moratorium's lifted. Now this is all predicated on the idea that the governor is actually going to let the moratorium expire. And from what it looks like, he is, but we'll see. It would be interesting for him to continue the moratorium and then open up the state to everybody from everywhere. But with the spike in COVID cases, who knows what's going to happen.
You really shouldn't mumble.
If you haven't been paying your rent, okay? If you have not been paying your rent during this moratorium under the false idea that you don't have to because there's a moratorium on evictions, let me explain something very clearly. There's only a moratorium on evicting people for non-payment during that period of time. There is nothing that says that the landlord cannot come back and evict you and get all of the back rent. So I have cases currently right now where it appears that a tenant has taken advantage of this moratorium and decided, even though they have work and income, that they're just not going to pay the landlord, and they're going to bank up that cash, and they're just not going to pay rent because, well, landlord can't do anything about it. Well, that's not true. They can't do anything about it now, but if you haven't been paying rent since March and you get an eviction notice and a complaint filed against you, guess what? The landlord can now go evict you from the property and get a judgment from the court for all that rent from March till the day you were kicked out. Okay? So if you've been not paying just because you don't think that they can do anything about it, you've been racking up a large court bill and you need to get it paid, and you need to settle up with your landlords. Otherwise, there's going to be big problems here coming up soon, because on August 1st, I have a feeling that there's going to be a bunch of cases filed against people who just weren't paying their rent, and then they're going to turn around and go, well, I want to pay the rent. But guess what? Once that case for eviction is filed, it doesn't matter if you settle up the rent. At that point, they can still proceed with evicting you because of the past non-payment. So, to be clear, if you have not been paying rent, you can get kicked out after the moratorium's over for rent you haven't paid during the moratorium. So if you have the ability to pay the rent,
This is bad.
and you need to get it paid, and you need to settle up with your landlords. Otherwise, there's going to be big problems here coming up soon, because on August 1st, I have a feeling that there's going to be a bunch of cases filed against people who just weren't paying their rent, and then they're going to turn around and go, well, I want to pay the rent. But guess what? Once that case for eviction is filed, it doesn't matter if you settle up the rent. At that point, they can still proceed with evicting you because of the past non-payment. So, to be clear, if you have not been paying rent, you can get kicked out after the moratorium's over for rent you haven't paid during the moratorium. So if you have the ability to pay the rent, pay it, settle up, protect yourself. Landlords, same thing. If you've got tenants that have not been paying rent, that means that you can file your complaint starting August 1st and ask for all that back rent during the moratorium. You can collect that, okay?
Hey, buddy. I'm just here to collect.
Another thing that I want to talk about is I think at this time we've all kind of had our little brush with mortality and the understanding of, we can't control the world and what's going to happen. So I want to take this time to plug, do some shameless self-promotion, plug in our estate plans. If you have any assets, if you have homes, if you have cars, if you have cash, if you have retirement accounts, if you have stocks, bonds, anything like that, you don't have to be rich, but if you have anything that you want to make sure is protected and given to the right people in your family, or the people that you want it to go to in your family, if anything is to happen to you, you really need to consider getting an estate plan set up. When we do an estate plan, there's essentially 4 basic documents that are parts of estate plans. The first is what we call a will. Everybody knows what a will is. It tells everybody what to do with your stuff and what to do with you after you pass away. And it tells everyone who you want to do that, who you want to administer or run your estate after you pass away. Okay. Another document is called what we call a springing general power of attorney. What that means is when some event happens, the springing power of attorney gives a person, what we call an agent, authority to manage your business affairs. These are typically in cases where the person who has the estate plan, they're incapacitated in some way. Let's say you get into a car wreck, you hit your head and you're knocked out and you go into a coma for 6 months. This springing power of attorney would kick in, and it would give your agent the ability to pay your bills, so that you don't get your house foreclosed on. All that kind of stuff. Manage your monetary affairs and your physical affairs. The next document kind of goes along with that. It's called a healthcare directive, also known as a living will. These are in place when something like the car accident that puts you in a coma for 6 months, you're not able to make decisions for yourself. You've appointed somebody to make your own medical decisions. So you have one that allows them to make financial and business decisions for you, one document that allows somebody to make medical decisions for you, okay, when you're incapacitated. If you've passed away from this accident, neither one of those apply and the will applies. The fourth document that we work on is a trust document, okay, and trust can come in many forms. They can be irrevocable, they can be revocable, they can be spendthrift, they can be all of these different fancy legal terms, but if you have lots of assets, or assets you want to shield from probate, or assets that you want to shield from certain tax laws, those kind of things, or assets that you want to be that you want preserved for future generations to use, or you want to start a scholarship fund in your name after you pass away, you can use this trust to do that. And so the best way to get all of the right information and to figure out what's good for you is to schedule a consultation with me. Come sit down. Let's talk about your estate plan. Let's talk about what you have, figure out what's going to work best to do what you want to meet your goals, and then let's implement it.
I think that's a very good idea, Mother. A very good idea.
All of my estate plans are done on flat fees, so we're not billing you at an hourly rate. We're just billing you one flat fee for however long it takes to prepare each document. If you get more than one document, we bundle them together into what we call a basic or an estate plan, or basic or an advanced estate plan, and you get a 25% discount on the package if you bundle all those things together. If you're a husband and wife or a partner, something like that, and you want to have wills in place for both of you and they say the exact same things, just names switched around, we don't charge you twice for it. Those are called reciprocal documents, and it would be crazy if I charged you twice to do the same document, and just switch the names around. So give us a call, 808-419-6937, or you can send us an email at josh@jameslawmaui.com, and we can set you up with an appointment to come in and talk about your estate plan. If you have questions about what's going to go on with the eviction moratorium lifting, if you have tenants that you need to deal with, if you have landlords you need to deal with because of it, and this goes for everybody who has commercial leases and agreements as well, give us a call at the same numbers. We'll sit down and we'll discuss what's going on in your case or in your situation, and we'll figure it out, come up with a plan that hopefully gets us to the best legal conclusion possible. Once again, if you have questions, you can call me, you can email me, you can send me messages through Facebook, you can comment on this video. We've been getting really good results with you guys sharing these videos and getting them posted around. I think with my live video after it was over and we posted it, I got something like 9,000 or 10,000 views on that. So let's post it around, let's get it all over the island so that everybody knows that I'm here to help you guys. And like I said, contact me if you have any questions. Thanks.
This is a lot of great info. Thank you.